Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys are off to a great week. We sure are here. Happy, sunny, warm weather day in the Midwest, so we'll take it. We have an awesome guest this week, Joan Ulrich from Dallas Market Centers, DMC. I'm so excited for this conversation. I think it's really important for us to keep communication open with the various market centers, as I know there's been so much happening virtually over this last year, but markets are a big part of our industry, so I want to make sure we have that open conversation and talk about, how markets have adapt and help us and help all the retailers, move in and keep moving forward as we move through this crazy COVID experience. Next week, I know a couple weeks ago, I kind of had a brain lapse and I said that Nicholas was our next guest, but I was just kidding and it ended up being Jill. I just had my dates mixed up. So Nicholas is actually coming on next week, the day before St. Patrick's Day. So come on next week and celebrate St. Patrick's Day with us. It's one of Nicholas's favorite holidays. So we're going to celebrate together. And we'll talk to him about some marketing, and he works with all of our vendors and is a very intricate part of our and sales management team. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump in here with Joan. Hello there. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I have had the opportunity to know you for a number of years now in some different positions. But I would love to first start off with you telling our viewers a little bit about yourself and some of your background in the industry and in the markets.
I can do that. So I have basically been working in the market production business for most of my career. I'm with the Dallas Market Center. I am EVP of hard goods leasing, so I oversee the leasing for all the gift, home and design, lighting, and for our temporaries here. And I those of you who have known me for a while know that I've been in Dallas for a couple of years, but I raised my family in Chicago. I'm a Chicagoan just like you are. Having worked with the Merchandise Mart for 14 years in a similar capacity, different industries, sometimes different buildings, but mostly responsible for working with our showrooms and our temporaries, bringing them to market for our important retailers. And I love this business. It's crazy. It's really a niche thing that I do, that we do. But it gets in your blood, and once you do it, you can't really imagine doing anything else.
I know that is what I feel so many of us say, is that it does get in your blood and you just get, you fall in love with it, and it's hard to imagine being outside of this industry. I think it's all of the emotion that sometimes we don't want to admit is mixed into all of this product and, all these things. So, I had the opportunity of first initially meeting you in Chicago as we spent a lot of time at the Merchandise Mart, and so then you moved over to Dallas, and I'm thankful that we've been able to keep in touch and whatnot. So so you've been with Dallas for a couple years, and then you were hit with this craziness of the COVID-19, and so I know it's been quite a year of juggling, how to work around the pandemic. But you guys really have been very successful in that juggling act and been able to have some great shows, over the last year, which congratulations to that. And thank you for pushing forward and but yet doing it in a very safe way. We've had so many customers and everything and vendors say that they continue to have great experience with that. How did you do it? How did you keep pushing forward?
Well, just thinking a little bit about the background. So last year about this time, right? We got the dictate, And we closed the building for I think about 6 weeks. So end of March, all of April, and then we opened up again the beginning of May. And we were following all the guidance for what would be retail, like for a shopping mall, and that's the category that we fall into, even though it's a little different business than what we're doing. And it was a really trying time, and so we opened up the beginning of May, and then we were like, do we do June shows? I mean, there was and we were all of us in this business were whether a trade show, other permanent market buildings, it was a whole new thing to navigate, and we started producing shows with our June apparel show. So that was the first show post shutdown. And then we've been doing shows since June. I honestly have lost track. I'm going to say probably 16 shows since June. And, thankfully, successfully and safely. And with each subsequent show, we learned a lot. One, that people need shows. People, they came because they needed product, and they didn't come in the same numbers. But they were desperate for product, and people were looking for in-stock product. Yeah. Right. That's what retailers needed. So over this now approaching a year, just bringing us through January. In January, our apparel show actually was up 25% year over year. So within that 6-month period, and the multiple apparel shows that we had, we actually were showing a significant increase in attendance. And then on the gift side for January, we were 70%, so 30% down January versus last January, which I think comparatively was a win. Yeah. From a business standpoint, our showrooms were writing, anywhere at maybe that 30% down, kind of equal with our attendance, to, up by double-digit numbers, up to 125%, 140% of year over year, and of course it depends on the category. Our holiday and floral showrooms probably led, with increases because retailers had such a good fourth quarter with holiday goods, and there was concern and urgency about replacing goods and getting goods for this upcoming year. So I think the bottom line is that we have some physical attributes, the building, atriums, a lot of stairwells, elevators, escalators, free parking, so people can park on a flat surface and walk in. There isn't all the verticalness that was making people nervous. Mm-hmm. So that in combination with making the commitment to do it and doing it, and doing it safely, and our attendees need to have product. It's that combination that resulted in some successful markets.
Yeah, and you guys have another apparel and accessories and the total home and gift market coming up March 23rd through the 26th. And so that one is usually more of a smaller market, than your January and June markets. But do you feel that you're drawing from more of a regional customer base or more of a nationwide customer base?
Well, and it varies by industry, and I would say, from a gift standpoint, tends to be regional. We get a lot of, we've got a lot of population and retail density, a lot of people driving into the market, which is all great, for our marketplace, as well as, a good representation of, large retailers, and many that are based here, some of which have been suffering, through various financial situations. But, there's a good base of strong retail in this area. So that's always helpful. I think that this winter, from a gift standpoint and definitely from an apparel standpoint, we drew from further. Because again, to the point of people desperate to buy, so people were driving further, and for gift, the Vegas show was postponed.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they did the appointment only,
Yes.
In January. But I think there were West Coast retailers that whose sales reps rebooked them here.
Yep.
Once that happened, so we had a better West Coast reach than we might normally.
Yeah.
And from an apparel standpoint, Magic had canceled. So I think just by the attendance increase, I mean, it's very fair to say that the apparel industry was drawing from a much, much larger, more national reach than would be typical.
Yeah. Well, that's great though, and it opened up, people to a new experience moving forward. And because you're right, I mean, the design of the building definitely allows for a great feel while juggling the feels, all the emotional aspect of that we've been given and thrust into over this last year, juggling COVID. And you do several different, I mean, aside from just the apparel and the gift and home, you also have a children's show and a lighting show. I mean, as you said, you've done 16 roughly shows, since June. So you guys are always, throwing up these shows. I shouldn't say throwing up because I know that it's not a quick throw up. It's a long process and a lot of work. But, so yeah, you have a wide range that you do. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I'm not very familiar with it, is the Dallas Design Week. Can you tell us a little bit of what that is? It looks really interesting.
Yeah, so we have a very strong design and home business in Dallas. And when I describe our design business, it's kind of parallel to the Merchandise Mart when they had gift industry in the Merchandise Mart. So, we have the combination of a typical Mart building with a design center embedded in it. So, for people that are in Atlanta, it would be like having ADEC at the Atlanta Market Center, and that's what we have the benefit of doing. And it's a great combination because we're obviously servicing the wholesale trade and furniture stores and lifestyle stores and all the different kinds of retailers that come through here. But we also, a very important attendee to us is the designers. And, we have really strong design business during the market on a day-to-day basis. And those attendees are in here, with projects in hand, and they're here, they can be here 2 and 3 times a week, sourcing different things with their clients. They can bring their clients in wear their client badge. So the Design Week is really is a way of us twice a year engaging the design community, with the Market Center by offering different programming that's appropriate for them and really focusing on our better goods, design-oriented resources. It's been challenging to navigate that during COVID, getting the design community to come out in September was challenging, and we did a lot of it in September. We did a lot of it virtually, but now in upcoming April, we're doing events on campus, book signings and educational events, and under control cocktail parties, right? The socially distanced cocktail parties, in a way that moves people through campus.
Okay.
And, it's generally a very popular event that was quieter during COVID, and now we're not completely back to normal, but there's more programming than there had been.
we're headed in the right direction, darn it.
Right,
You
right.
know, we're headed in the right direction. And I would imagine that that would be a sector of the industry that, you know, as we start to pull more and more out of this, really could grow in a lot of ways, as we've all been spending so much more time in our home, and everyone is wanting to update and revamp sections of their home. But I feel like in some ways we're also busier than ever as we are pulling out of this. So a lot of people are going to be looking to those designers again, in need of home elements, you know.
The design business is on fire, and it's been good for months.
Yeah.
So as people were spending more time at home, you know, they were updating, and I mean, there's a lot of people moving and buying second and third houses, right? You know, the biggest issue we have there is just designers getting product.
Yeah.
So that with what's going on at the ports, you know, it's taking longer to get goods in.
Yeah.
So people, you know, their waits are really being extended.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know about what's going on at the ports, I do recommend to maybe take a moment to look into it. They're working really hard, but there are a lot of there's a lot of slowdown happening at the ports. So all the vendors are, you know, hoping and doing everything they can to get the product in and then out to all the retailers as quickly as they can. But try to have a little bit of patience with everybody, as it's a multi-step process, you know, in this. So you mentioned earlier in the conversation that you have in some ways realized more than ever how important shows are by your attendance, you know, throughout this. I would really like to talk about that a little bit, you know, as we've seen so much become virtual. And of course, I feel that there's an uptick in some comfort of doing some virtual buying. We always talk about how it's really a touchy-feely and an emotional industry, and you're seeing the numbers proving that. Why is it that you think that markets are, you know, so important, and maybe in some ways now more than ever?
And I think that's true, and this is maybe counterintuitive to what people are being told or what they're reading, right? So there's no question that, you know, an omni-channel digital, you know, world has emerged as, you know, is really part of our landscape, and it's necessary, and it fills a lot of needs for both the manufacturer and the attendee. But you know, there's just some things that we've learned through this. One, and this is not new information, but if you talk to a manufacturer and they have a robust website, right, where people can buy, I mean, what they tell us is that people order 2.5 times more, you know, when you're working with them in a showroom versus working, you know, when they're just ordering off of a website. So, you know, you're giving up a lot of business if you don't have that opportunity to be able to work in person, you know, with your buyer. And I think that there's also, I think there's digital fatigue too. Yes. That, you know, it's necessary. You're going to do it. You're going to reorder your staples, you know, your inventory items, but you know, it's not near as satisfying, as being, you know, at a market, you know, working with your sales rep, you know, exchanging intel, feeling comfortable at what you're buying because your sales rep can tell you other people are buying this, it's retailing, you know, that you can rub elbows with your peers, your fellow retailers, and talk about, you know, what's working, what's not working. That you can't replace that. Mm-hmm. You can't. And you know, this is, you know, when you're sitting on a computer ordering alone, there's no sense of community or, you know, thrill or exploration or a sense of discovery. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I mean, one of the things I was thinking about when I started talking earlier is that you can't underestimate the value of the buzz and the energy, you know, of a market and what that creates. And one of the things that I got really used to saying here as we go through all these COVID months is, better than expected. Everything that we did was better than we expected. You have a market, well, who's coming? And the hotels don't look good, and the pre-registration doesn't look good. And then the market happens, and, and it's better than expected. All the metrics that used to work don't work anymore.
Yeah.
They're driving, they're Airbnb, they're only staying one day, they're driving 4 hours and then driving home. I mean, the whole landscape is different. But with this industry and the kinds of goods that fuel it, you just can't underestimate the value of the market in that whole chain.
Yeah. What do you think the vendors are doing to adapt and evolve throughout all of this?
What are the vendors doing?
Yeah.
Well, I think that I think both on the vendor and the retailer side, there's been an enormous amount of innovation and barriers that have come down, and people doing things they never thought they would do before. I mean, when you think about what retailers were doing when they were closed, and just drive-through buying and reps delivering Easter baskets and for their retailers, I mean, it practically brings you to tears what people did to go above and beyond. So I think that both on the retailer side and manufacturer side, there's been a lot of innovation. But I think with the manufacturers, while there's from a leasing standpoint, our leasing is very robust. We have a lot of this terrible year, we have a lot of people that have taken new leases with us, renewed their leases, expanded. It's been great. But I also think that retailers or manufacturers are they're doing many things they wouldn't have done in the past to generate sales.
But that's great to hear, though, that you're seeing that the renewal of leases and the new leases and some expansion. I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that there are people that are digging their heels in and, that see and know that there's a light coming and maybe bigger possibilities even than before, all of the shutdown happened. So I think that, things like that, it gives me hope, I think, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that goes, all right, there's greatness out there that we can continue to look forward to seeing as we keep on, trucking through this and coming out of this.
And I would just say that, disruption brings opportunity. We know that in life. And this is just one more example of how that's true. Exactly.
So you've talked a little bit about reps here and there, working with your rep and all of that. What do you see as the importance of reps?
Well, they're invaluable. I mean, really, they're the they are the people with the relationships with retailers that drive them to markets. They're making appointments. They're encouraging them to come to see new product. They're trusted. They're trusted by their retailers. They get invaluable information that they can't get from anybody else. They're in the stores servicing, taking inventory, whatever is necessary. So they're a really important component to that whole supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned before, the little things like a rep being able, while you're working with them, being able to tell them, who else in their town is maybe purchasing some of the lines or some of the products. Sometimes you're working with a big line that has thousands of items, and it's okay to be able to bring that line in with another store in your town, but the rep can tell you, hey, let's look at some different product from that line. So yeah, those are great things while you're working through the shows and at markets. So how do you see DMC continuing to evolve, over the next, chunk of time as we're clawing our way back or
Well,
forward?
I think I would say building on the platforms and the strengths that we have now. So we have a partnership with Market Time. So we do have a digital partner, right? That gets us into that digital space in a way that we hadn't been in the past. That's a new relationship for us. We're very good at partnerships. We just brought in WESA, the Western industry. Had been in Denver for 90 years, and they joined us in January, and they have a long-term commitment to the Dallas Market Center. So that brought a whole, I think there were close to 150 new showrooms of all the new Western product, and then all the Western retailers from all over the country that visited for the first time in January, and our showrooms really benefited by that.
Yeah.
It was the week after the gift market. They were here in conjunction with Apparel, and we had really a lot of our showrooms who benefited by those new retailers being here. So I think that we'll continue to look at strategic partnerships that do that bring us new retailers, and that's complementary to the businesses that we have. Our international business, Crow Holdings, owns the Brussels Mart. So we have that international presence, and then some of our executive committee has been working with the Dubai Global Connect, and that's a new mart that's being launched in Dubai, obviously, which opens up a lot of opportunity for us internationally.
Absolutely.
And I think our business from Mexico and Latin America is really important here in Dallas, and that's another kind of building block or fundamental thing that is a little bit unique to us, just given our location and strength in that category. So we see nothing but good things ahead.
That's awesome. That's great to hear that. Yeah, that there is growth and expansion on the horizon. So, well, Joan, thank you so much for joining me and giving us a chance to talk about the market. You are the first mart that we have had the chance to bring onto the show, and so I'm really thankful for you, being that first market guest for us. Now I'm going to hit you with our final 3 questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. So first one is, what is your favorite book, podcast, or blog?
Well, I got hooked into listening to Dolly Parton's America, the podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's 8 or 9 episodes, and they're 45 minutes each.
Okay.
And this, I listened to it probably last summer. As I was walking, I'd listen to it, and of course, anybody that's on Instagram or that is living has seen how Dolly Parton has exploded on the scene.
Yes.
And this was a little bit ahead of that, but it just such an interesting person, listening to what's happened in her life, from performing early to what's going on now, and how she's so endeared by so many people and communities, and has managed not to alienate anybody, and just to be her her unusual self and love it. I mean, it was really interesting, and to listen to that much information about Dolly Parton, right? Hours, and enjoy it. It was really, I can highly recommend it.
I didn't know that she did that podcast. I will be going and looking for it, because she is such a interesting person that, manages to stay true to who she is while helping a lot of people.
Yeah, right.
What is the most important item in your toolbox?
I really, there wasn't anything that jumped to mind. And so I don't have anything very creative. And all I would say is just my iPhone. I mean, really, I mean, who doesn't, when I'm on the computer, I've got the phone. It's, if I didn't have my phone, I would be really anxious, because it's everything, work and bank and family and photos and contacts, and so it's not very creative, but I don't think I could function if I didn't have my phone.
Yeah, I think that is just very realistic.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
it's very sexy, but that's it.
It's always within arm's reach, right? Or now on your wrist in some format now. Exactly. So yes, I agree with you. And last, but probably our most important, how do you think that retail will continue to evolve through 2021?
Well, through 2021, I think that, I said better than expected. I also think that, when I talked about our business, I think that it's a green light, right? Green light through 2021 for our retailers. Consumer confidence is high, economic outlook is good. All of our metrics, moving in the right direction. So really, the sky's the limit. There should be really a lot of pent up demand, and I think, in terms of, we just see a lot of lifestyle retailers continuing blending of the industry. I do gift. I have a peer that does apparel, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait, is that me? Is that you? Because there's so much happening in the middle, and that's what the market dictates. And I think we'll continue to see the blending of that too, through home design, through Western, through toy, everything. I just continue to see that trend.
Yeah, I agree. There's certainly a blend across the board. And I think that you're right, that will continue to grow. We've seen that kind of started in some of our mid-tier retailers before COVID, and it seems to really be blowing up. So, well, thank you so much for your time, and for talking us through everything that's happening out there at DMC. And I know you guys had all that crazy weather, but now you are past that and moving on into spring and summer beautiful weather, and before we know it, you guys, it'll be too hot there is what the next thing will be. It'll be so hot. So thank you so much, and hopefully I will talk to you soon at one of the markets.
All right, thanks.
All right, everyone, thanks so much for joining us this Tuesday. As I said, markets are so important for us to keep open communication with. There is certainly an element of, sight and touch, and just an emotional connection when you're physically with the product versus, just doing everything virtually or through catalogs and whatnot. So, always great to know what else is out there as we're all more and more comfortable getting out and about. And I know I am looking forward to, the next market season coming up, as I have been hunkered down at home for a long time now myself. Join us next week. We have Nicholas Vafakis coming on next week. He is part of the sales management team, an intricate part of the sales management team. And we're going to be celebrating St. Patrick's Day. So come with us and, celebrate with us. And until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week.